Anyway, thank you and welcome to our board. The other thing, Kevin, I'd like to thank you. I wasn't able to be here at the last board meeting, and for your service, 2 years as the chair and vice chair prior to that time. So I'd like to say thank you very much for what you did and your service for all of us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you all for putting up with me for the last 2 years in a position of semi-authority. So thank you.
At this time, I'd like to change the agenda just a wee bit. Rather than having the chair report at number 4, I would like to put that up to right after now at this point in time in position 3, because I have a few words I'd like to say to all of us, to board members and to staff and so forth. As we continue with the health district's objectives and so forth, one of the things that we do is finding out, preparing an agenda prior to having a board meeting is very, very complex. It's like a conundrum, a riddle or a puzzle, in trying to put all the pieces together. An agenda is a planning procedure in order to get things done. And that's why we're here. That's why this board is here. Our first responsibilities as a board is to take care of the health district business first and foremost. And the Regional Health Board governance responsibilities are clearly defined. 1, the board is charged to assume responsibility for public health performances in the community. 2, we are charged to develop policies that protect, promote, and improve public health equity while ensuring that the agency remains consistent with its statutory responsibilities. 3, we are charged to ensure that everyone in the community has an equal opportunity to reach his or her health and well-being regardless of social, economic, or other characteristics. And 4th, we are charged to assist administration and staff in building and strengthening community partnerships, encouraging linkage, and sharing information to ensure the collaboration of all relevant stakeholders in promoting and protecting the community's health. However, in order to fulfill those responsibilities, the board needs to have time to debate, discuss, approve, or disapprove of those items on a proposed agenda. The board realizes the importance of public input. Absolutely, extremely important for us. But at the same time, the board realizes that it is equally important for the board to conduct a business for and of the district. And I might add, this is a primary reason, again, why we're here, to govern. Board agendas are designed to add pertinent content for business matters, time allotments, and also the availability and scheduling of board members. The magic number for success meeting is 6, a quorum. And I'll discuss a little bit later about the availability and scheduling of 11 board members in trying to have a meeting of this nature. We are a board consisting of 11 members. Hopefully the next week or two we will be what is authorized 12 members. And so they represent all the cities and legislative districts within the community and within the county. However, many board members serve and are involved on many other boards. And some examples are the Convention Center, 911, Greater Spokane Incorporated, Growth Management Board, Housing and Community Board, Mayor's Association and Northwest Association, Solid Waste Board, Regional Clean Air, SRTC, STA, TPA, and wastewater boards, and airport boards. Now, the people sitting at this dais on this table are really involved in all those, and they're members of those other boards. So again, you get a general idea of the complexity of us sitting here today and where we are able to, simply because we made arrangements over the years to make sure this time limit is for us. You can begin to grasp the difficulty in trying to schedule board members on a particular day and time, and then considering their other commitments that they have with their own cities that they are members of or within the county, plus all these other boards, plus our board. Of course, we think this is the most important board. So I keep reminding them that they have to attend this one and not be too concerned. But I know that the Spokane board members have a study session after this one at 3:30. So here again, it's important that we finish our business prior to that time so they can take care of that commitment. Fortunately for the board and administration, the 12:30 to 2:30 time framework on the last Thursday of the month works very well for us. And even at that, we have conflicts. And to add to this puzzle again, in order to vote on any action item on the agenda, we need a quorum or a majority of the members to be in attendance in order to properly take care of business matters. The executive committee, which includes board members, district administration, and staff members, prepare a list of proposed items according to the order of business to be considered and to develop an agenda for the board meeting. During this deliberation, the amount of time necessary for each item on the agenda is determined, making sure we at the board have the necessary informational background to make the appropriate decisions. There are those board members, as I explained previously, that have other commitments, which often occur after our regular scheduled meeting time of 2:30 in the afternoon. We need to recognize that business considerations beyond this time period, with board members leaving, could very well jeopardize the possibility of not having a quorum. In the last 6 years, very few public expression sessions at our board meetings have gone beyond 30 minutes. In fact, most were 5 to 10 minutes. So it is my belief that most everything that needs to be expressed regarding a specific matter, if well organized, can be accomplished within 30 minutes. If not, other appropriate arrangements will be considered. If time does not allow all participants to speak, other options for expression can be done via written communication or email addressed to the Health Board Executive Secretary. All board members will receive copies relating to any public input. We can always make sure other arrangements if we need lengthier board meetings to notify the board members ahead of time so they can make a proper arrangements to be able to be at those. The notion that we're going to be talking about proposal number 18-01, and the notion that this proposal that we are going to be discussing is designed to curtail public input is just pure nonsense. We make sure that we are heard every which often we can provide. So today, the public hearing will start now. We will have a 30-minute period to begin with. We will then stop at 30 minutes, and we will then do health district business, at which time, after we end that, for those people and co-board members that will have to leave for other commits may do so, but at that time we will continue public input until another 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, so we make sure everybody is heard. Again, I'm trying to look at the possibility of making sure that board members have the commitment necessary after our board meeting for other commitments they have made. So at this time, we'll take the mic, the sign-up sheet. Okay.
Yeah, roll call.
Oh, no, thanks. While Mike's getting that, we'll do roll call, please. Starting with you, Commissioner Kearns, please.
Josh Kearns, Spokane County.
Kevin Freeman, City of Millwood, Small City Representative.
Bob Lutz, Health Officer. Tony Smith, Administrator.
Al French, County Commissioner.
Brian Beggs, City Council Member, City of Spokane.
Chuck Hafner, Chair.
Karen Stratton, City of Spokane.
Michelle Fossum, Legal Counsel.
And Gustavo, Recording Secretary.
And okay. So at this time, then, we will begin the citizen input. And recall again that we'll go for 30 minutes. You'll spend 3 minutes apiece. Up on the dais, please give your name and your address. Speak for 3 minutes. We will notify you at the end of 3 minutes that your time is up. We will not interrupt your speech at all. But at the end of 3 minutes, we will find up a sign, and then we'll say your 3 minutes is up. And I would please ask if you would adhere to that 3 minutes. Again, as I said, after the 30-minute session, we will go into a business section. After the business section at that time, for those members that have to leave, board members that have to leave because of other commitments, we will then continue the public input at that time. Okay, so starting with Jacqueline Gallion, please.
One moment, please. We're going to recognize Lori Kinnear.
Oh, I'm going to.
She has to go.
Oh, you have to go, Lori? Oh, well, Lori, come on up here, please. I didn't realize you had to leave before I had my chair report.
I liked it, though. That counts.
Well, Lori Kinnear has been an outstanding member of our board outstanding member. She has contributed to the welfare of our community, not only our community, but she serves on the City of Spokane Council. So she has just been such a contributor to what we've been trying to do, and we're sorely going to miss her. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck.
And would you like to say something, Laura?
STA is going to get me instead of Health Board, so, and I'll probably see most of you, at least two, and Dr. Lutz is a neighbor, so I'm not going for it. So, and I appreciate all of your hard work and dedication. This is a very worthwhile board, and we absolutely need all of your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, is there anybody else that needs to leave early? Okay. Okay, now we will start with Jacqueline, please. Please, Jacqueline? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Do you want to keep the turn? Please.
Okay, Jacqueline Gallion, City of Spokane Valley. On January 17th, 2017, we received a letter from our high school notifying us of a positive mumps case. January 18th, we received a second notice of a positive mumps case, which started the school exclusion. But February 6th, we were notified of a third mumps case. As you can see in the document there before you, the third mumps case was tested negative, and she missed 0 days of school. This third case extended our children's exclusion. Did the health district give you these breakdowns during the reports to the board? Where's the transparency? Is it appropriate to remove healthy children from school based off a negative test result? The due process that's laid out in the WAC is there for a purpose, to prevent abuse of power. Unless the proper due process procedures detailed in WAC 246-100-040, which include a hearing in front of a judge, are followed, an exclusion order is voluntary. This procedural requirement is part of the checks and balances of the board's powers authorized to a health officer. A health officer simply cannot unilaterally isolate, quarantine, or exclude citizens for arbitrary lengths of time with no recourse for the citizen to challenge the decision, which only makes sense. Had the health officer implemented the exclusion properly with the checks and balances, he would not have been able to sneak this false third case by judicial review, and our kids would have been back in school earlier. There is speculation that the reason no Spokane Regional Health District attorney has issued a formal written legal rationale for how the exclusions were involuntary is because our officers of the court, because as officers of the court, they could face professional sanction for misleading board members. The elected members sitting at this table take an oath to uphold and defend the U.S. and Washington state Constitution. You represent us, and you're our voice. Who do we go to when the health district abuses their power? Here, at this very podium, our 3 minutes once a month to ask for help. The proposed bylaw changes to limit citizen input is exactly the opposite of what needs to happen here. If the Spokane Regional Health District is misrepresenting case counts to you and the public, what else needs to be examined? We continue to come and ask for vaccine safety, efficacy, and inform you of the harm exclusions can cause, with valid concern. If a parent questions vaccine safety and efficacy, wouldn't coming here be a great place to have those questions answered? If a parent has seen harm from a school exclusion, wouldn't notifying our elected officials and the health district be the place to go? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, board members, health district staff, and fellow citizens. My name is Ed Pace. I live in the city of Spokane Valley, and I'm here today to ask you to please vote no on the resolution that would limit public input. To limit public input would be kind of like a worker going to work and his boss says, hey, I'd like about a 30-minute meeting with you, and then you say, nah, you can only have 10 minutes. Well, you can't do that. You'd get fired. Well, in this case, the citizens who make public comments are the bosses of the board members. We pay through our taxes your salaries, and then for the elected members, which is the majority, we vote for you. So it doesn't make sense to limit public input. If we look at the Constitution, Article 1 of the Washington State Constitution, Declaration of Rights, Section 1, political power, says all political power is inherent in the people, and governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. And then it goes on to talk about rights. But in order to get the consent of the governed, you need to hear from the governed. So please vote no on Resolution 18-01 so that public comments can continue as they are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina? By the way, if I mispronounce your name, let me know that, please, when you go to the podium. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Christina Nielsen of Spokane City. In 1983, there were no vaccines given at birth, 8 given from 2 to 4 months and 3 at 15 months. By the time the child was a year and a half old, they would have had received 18 vaccines. In 1994, 1 vaccine was given at birth, 12 from 2 to 4 months, and 4 from 12 to 18 months. By the time the child was a year and a half old, they would have had received 27 vaccines. In 2018, 4 are given to pregnant women, 1 at birth, 15 from 2 to 4 months, and 13 from 12 to 15 months. By the time a child is a year and a half old, they will have had 40 vaccines. Where are the studies showing how safe it is for a child to receive 40 vaccines by 18 months? This never occurs in nature. Naturally, you have a 50-50 shot, if that, of coming in contact with a virus, and here we are injecting kids with 7 vaccines in 1 visit. Are these children tested for allergies before administration of vaccines? What if they're allergic to eggs, peanuts, or latex? Some vaccines contain animal and human DNA, and these are against some religious or philosophical beliefs. What is this DNA doing to our bodies and the generations after us? I've never read a study that came to the conclusion that injecting DNA was a good thing. Some side effects of childhood vaccines include encephalopathy, which is in the MMR vaccine insert. Sudden infant death syndrome is in the DTaP, atypical measles from the MMR, thrombocytopenia, diabetes, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and many more. These side effects are not rare, they're just rarely reported. Vaccines are a drug of medical intervention. No drug is completely safe, and no drug is a one-size-fits-all. There are risks associated with vaccines, and they need to be taken seriously. Vaccines should never be mandated, and we should always have the right to say no if we choose to. Since 1988, over $3.5 billion has been paid by the taxpayers through the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program to people who suffered damage from vaccines and were able to prove it in court. Most people don't even know that there's a tax on vaccines that goes toward this fund. There is a risk with every vaccine, and where there is a risk, there must always be a choice. I'm also asking to please vote no on the resolution number 18-01 to limit public comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Burrows, please.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Burrows. I live in the city of Spokane. Today I wanted to take the time to address the polarity that exists within the vaccine debate. There seem to be 2 labels, either pro or anti. Creating labels that find themselves at such extreme ends of the spectrum creates an environment that is non-conducive to an open and honest discussion. The issues at the heart of this topic are vaccine safety, fully informed consent, and freedom of choice. In the months that I've attended these meetings, I've sat through vaccine compliance statistics with absolutely no discussion by the board on steps that can be taken to minimize vaccine side effects and injury. We live in a world where we have the capability of creating designer babies. We certainly have the technology to identify genetically susceptible groups. The idea of medicine for the sake of the greater good has serious ethical and moral implications. It is true, death and injuries have resulted from childhood illnesses and the flu, but death and injuries have also occurred from the very vaccines designed to prevent them. Human life and the quality thereof should not be reduced to statistics. We live in a world of increasing scientific precision and increased understanding of DNA and epigenetics. There's no reason to be stuck in a one-size-fits-all vaccination model. Vaccine risk denialism is the greatest threat to vaccine uptake. Denialism does nothing but create disappointment and general distrust within the community. My plea is that rather than focusing on increased vaccine compliance, that the Health Board would listen to the concerns that citizens of this community have brought forth with an open mind and an open heart, and create policies that support an individualized medical model with regards to vaccines by taking into account the uniqueness of the patient's genetic makeup. No human being should have to sacrifice their health for the sake of herd immunity. Inadvertently causing harm to prevent harm makes no sense. Even if the subset of people who risk an adverse reaction is small, they still deserve protection as well as a voice. And I ask that you please also vote no for Resolution 10-01 that would limit public input at these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron?
Hi, my name is Erin Kranzler, and I recently moved here from the Spokane Valley. My husband and I moved our children and our tax-paying business to Washington to get away from government overreach in California. The vaccination law, SB 277, took away my ability to work without being able to use daycare. Daycare was included in the law. I could not afford a private nanny with the cost of living in California, and hiring a nanny would defeat the purpose of working. I feel like I had to flee California and was moving to a state that would respect my personal beliefs. There is an exodus in California of parents like myself. California is reporting a drop in attendance in schools, which is hurting California financially because of parents who are having to move or homeschool. There would be an exodus in California if laws changed eliminating exemptions, which means the loss of state and taxes. I am not anti-vaccine, I am safe medicine. I was given 10 vaccines by the time I was 18. The new schedule is 72. Most of those are given in the first year and a half of life. There is not one study showing the accumulation effects of all these vaccines. Each one has ingredients that I do not believe should be injected into our body. The study by Dr. Mitkus says aluminum is safe was flawed. The study was done by feeding it to mice, not injecting it to mice. Ingesting is a totally different process than injecting. Aluminum is a known neurotoxin. I do not use it in my deodorant, and I do not want to inject it into my body. It's linked to diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. We cannot go off studies like this to prove safety. I'm also concerned with no prior testing to administration of these ingredients. My son has a severe egg allergy. Allergy tests are not done up until the age of 6 months. If I had done the recommended schedule with no prior testing, my son would have been damaged. Polysorbate 80 is another ingredient that I am concerned about. It is designed to break the blood-brain barrier and delivers aluminum in vaccines directly to the brain. I'm also against using aborted fetal cells, MRC5 and WI38. What is injecting a third DNA doing to us? Dr. Suzanne Humphreys explains how vaccines are mutating and changing our genes. We are altering nature. God made us in his image, not using a man, a woman, and aborted fetal cells. I know you guys are frustrated with us coming here. I would much rather be doing a million other things. But I feel it is such an important issue. Please research our concerns. 5 bills regarding vaccine safety and concerns were dropped last week in Olympia. If our claims had no backing, why would representatives take the time to do this? The claims of fraud and lack of accountability at the CDC are real. Please vote no on the resolution 1801 about amending public comment. Thank you.
Kim?
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Helm, City of Spokane Valley. So today I'd like to discuss something that is very near and dear to my heart, which is the religious exemption for vaccines. And in Washington State, you do have the right to opt out of vaccination. Sure. I think so. I'll lean down like this. Someone who chooses to aborted fetal cells is what I'm going to be talking about today. You might be surprised to know that more than 23 vaccines contain cells, cellular debris, protein, and DNA from aborted babies. Someone who chooses to vaccinate might say, but they only use cell lines from 2 aborted babies in the vaccines. Many more babies were aborted and dissected in the process of obtaining the perfect strain. In fact, aborted babies are being used every day to create new cell lines for more vaccines. So who are these babies who never received a name and are only known by a scientific reference? PERC6 came from a healthy 18-week-old baby. This strain is being used to develop adenovirus, Ebola, influenza, malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV vaccines. Developers call it a human designer cell, but what they really mean is aborted baby cells. The HEK293 cell line is derived from the kidneys of a healthy aborted fetus and is being used to develop new influenza vaccines. IMR90 cell line is a 16-week-old female aborted baby, and IMR91 came from a male aborted baby. Both were created for vaccine production and functional references. WI38, a 16-week-old female baby who was aborted in Sweden because the parents felt they had too many children. The baby was packed on ice and sent to the United States where it was dissected. The use of WI38 cells is a lucrative, money-making business. WI1 through WI25 cell strains were derived from the lung, skin, muscle, kidney, heart, thyroid, thymus, and liver of 21 separate elective abortions. WI44 was derived from the lung of a 3-month-old surgically aborted fetus. MCR5 cell line was derived from the lung tissue of a 14-week-old male. 80 elective abortions were involved in the research and final production of the current rubella vaccine, 21 from the original WI1 through WI26 fetal cell lines that failed, plus WI38 itself, and 67 from the attempts to isolate the rubella virus. Despite what you've been told, aborted body parts are in your vaccinations, and it says so right in the package inserts. You might ask what the human safety studies on the effects of aborted fetal DNA, cells, and proteins in the vaccines are. The answer is 0. But there is research that shows that the mixing of DNA is a huge no-no. What are we doing? There is no religious justification that makes it even remotely okay to play operation with an aborted baby, let alone inject our children with foreign DNA that has the propensity to cause all sorts of medical conditions. I hope you can see the need to keep all exemptions intact and remove this wording of limiting exemptions from your legislative agenda. And I would also ask that you vote no to public comments today. There's many other things that we could be doing. I'm actually taking a loss of wages to be here. So we are here because we believe in this. Thank you.
Trask, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Carol Trask from Spokane Valley, Washington. At the last meeting, it was stated that many of the public comments over the last several meetings were not concerns that should be brought to this health board, and in order to bring forth change, these concerns need to be taken to other forums. I think you were referring to school exclusions. However, you have heard from parents, grandparents, soon-to-be parents, and even parents of vaccine-injured children who have concerns about the safety of vaccines. These people come from all walks of life. Some are homemakers, business owners, doctors, professionals, construction workers, sales clerks. Some leave jobs or get babysitters in order to be here. All are responsible, intelligent, informed citizens who are hardworking members of our community. Doctors who showed up to the October meeting stated vaccines can and do cause injury to some individuals. Many of these doctors also stated that individuals should have the choice to vaccinate or not. Shortly after, the Spokane Regional Health Board legislative agenda was introduced and passed. It included the protection of the public from communicable diseases by increasing immunization rates, and through restrictions on exemption to immunization requirements. The fact that this is still on the agenda shows that we do need to continue to come to these meetings and continue to communicate our concerns. When questioned why this would be on the agenda, we were told that the majority of the items were rolled over and transferred from last year's agenda. You can remove items from the agenda. Please do so, especially after you have heard concerns that if there is a risk in vaccines, then there needs to be a choice. Families should not be bullied into vaccinating so that their children can attend school. All children have a right to an education. Please remove taking away exemptions from your legislative agenda now and for future agendas. On occasions, it appears you are not listening. It doesn't appear you are listening when this remains on your legislative agenda. And now you are in the process of proposing a resolution to limit our voices and our concerns heard at these meetings. I plead with you, please do not pass this resolution. We do not want to come here only to be turned away from a meeting that occurs only once a month. We are all busy in today's society, and yet we make the energy and time to come here and talk about the items that are of extreme significance in our lives. We spend a good deal of our time to learn, research, and put together information. We travel here, often are nervous, sometimes have shaky voices and churning stomachs. We want our voices to be heard. We deserve to be listened to and have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Janelle?
I am Danielle Loft. There are too many reasons to protect parental rights, but let me list a few. I'm the parent. I know everything about my child. I know what's best for it.
You need to put the mic up so we can push it up so we can hear a little bit.
I'll lean down for you. I just don't want to, like, eat it. I know what's best.
Is that mic, will I go up there?
Can you hear me?
You can push it up more if you want, more extend.
I feel like I'm loud enough. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. I am the parent. I know everything about my child. I know what's best for it. No one else does. And because of that, my right to make decisions for it should stay in place. My journey for questioning vaccines started when my kids had unexplainable respiratory issues like asthma, none of which runs in my family. Might sound minor, but has been quite terrifying to experience, and I'm considered lucky compared to some. Then my sister got a job in healing and detoxing in California. She works with quite a few kids who are vaccine injured. She often receives phone calls from sobbing mothers who have recently taken their kids in for shots, and immediately they regress. They stop talking, walking, some die, and then when you see clearly written on the inserts asthma symptoms, encephalitis, seizures, SIDS, anaphylactic reactions, and death, you can't help but connect the dots. Over the last few years, I've met many friends with vaccine-injured children. This is something no one should have to go through in their life, and yet I know many who have. Can you tell me what would make mothers and fathers of injured children speak out against vaccines, risking bullying, losing friendships, family members being called a quack? I know they are not paid to do so. They care so much to protect others from what they've experienced that they're willing to put themselves in a vulnerable situation to get information out. Big Pharma, however, spends millions a year lobbying, buying propaganda and twisting information to make sure that the secret about vaccines being unsafe and ineffective stays a secret. Millions of taxpayer dollars are paid out to victims of vaccine injury through VAERS, the Vaccine Injury Program, as if that's enough to fix the damage that's been done. It's unfortunate Big Pharma can't be touched with their faulty vaccines that aren't tested whatsoever for safety, alone or all at once in one visit. But if you can't be caught for dishonesty in a faulty product, what would stop you from continuing to do so if it means $425 billion plus a year? Do you know any other business that isn't liable for their product or service being faulty? I don't. And yet Big Pharma is literally getting away with this. Another reason I don't trust them. Epigenetics aren't being considered in the harm that can be done with vaccines. It very much should be. MTHFR gene mutation is something 30 to 50% of people have and don't even know it. They do find out after they are injured or their loved one is. The body is unable to detox chemicals and heavy metals with this mutation. The risk of injury is so much higher with MTHFR. Vaccines having metals and toxic ingredients in them is sometimes enough to push the body over the edge, leading to injury and death. Don't you think testing for this mutation before vaccination should be done to ensure safety? Why isn't this something being discussed? Beyond the issues I mentioned, I don't trust the ingredients being injected in my family, including aborted fetal cells, monkey kidney cells, formaldehyde, aluminum. Ingestion is filtered through the organs.
Thank you.
Please vote no on Resolution 1801.
Hi, Petra Hoy, Spokane Valley, and I wanted to thank all the board members for what you do and welcome all the new board members. And I especially wanted to thank all the employees of the Regional Health District. Honestly, a year ago, I didn't really know what you do, but I really appreciate all the work you do. And I think we hear about the health district when things go wrong, but thank you so much for keeping us all safe. We really appreciate it. We probably don't say that enough, but it's true. So I've been here before to advocate for vaccination science and public health. A year ago, I wouldn't have thought I needed to do these things, but apparently we do. And I don't want to take a lot of your time because I feel like you really do have important work to do. But I have a letter that I'll give to Anne that's from Dr. LaSalle, MD, and she goes through very comprehensively many of these concerns. Please don't record me. Thank you. Are you recording me? Not you, Miss Jacqueline? Okay, so individuals can record too? Yes. Okay. Anyway, so Dr. LaSalle, MD, she goes through all these concerns, so you can review that if you'd like. And I also want to just mention, we heard a lot over the last year about parental rights and about children as being the property of their parents. And I have an article that I'll submit to you as well from Sean Vestal on Sunday, January 21st. And sadly, it's an example of what can happen when parental rights trump human rights and when children are treated as property. It's really sad. The article is entitled, How Did a System and a Community Fail a Boy So Completely? It's a tragic reminder that it does take a village to raise a child, especially the most vulnerable among us. So thank you again for protecting our children. Thanks.
Thank you. Sherry Robbins?
I may have to take my shoes off here. Hi, I'm Sherry Robinson. I'm a resident of the city of Spokane Valley. I'm a mother of two. I graduated from the University of California with a degree in microbiology with the emphasis in clinical microbiology. I'm here to support the members of the medical community that go science first and do rational rather than fake news. I want to highlight two pieces of fake news. One, vaccines have been proven not to cause autism. Autism is a horrific disease and condition. My husband's been a special educator and dealt with families, but it was disproved. The physician in Lancet lost his job. If you look up the CDC, it does not cause autism, but I can understand parents' hesitation. I also just want to mention that the term miscarriage in scientific literature is often referred to as spontaneous abortion. That might implicate actually the use of fetal cells if they were from a miscarriage that was referred to as a spontaneous abortion. Let's talk facts. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has committed $30 billion for vaccines, lifetime vaccines. And out of those vaccines, they're going to save 7.6 million lives of children. If you're concerned about life, 7.6 million children will die of diseases we don't even think about. Polio, pertussis. Pertussis kills babies that are not inoculated. My late uncle was a family practice physician in Minnesota. He said it was a blessing from God when they got the pertussis vaccine. Also, we had a pertussis outbreak in Sandpoint, not because parents were concerned about the vaccines, but you forget if you've got multiple children like I had, that's why they do a lot of the shots. My late pastor had polio. He didn't get the vaccine. I had a friend in high school that never got the polio vaccine. So again, bumps, and I'm at a loss why someone would want to send their child to school. There was a male child that hadn't been vaccinated against mumps because one of the side effects is sterility. Does that mean you don't want your child to have any grandchildren? And lastly, we say we really know about our children, we know what's best for our children, but I don't think there's a parent in this room or a person in this room that if you saw a child bouncing around in a car that wasn't restrained, which is our law right now, that you wouldn't call 911 and say, wait, save that child's life. My mom used an arm. She loved me. But that's not the best restraint for a little child, is it? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jill, okay, we have one last one to do. Oh, that's 30 minutes. Okay, that does take care of the input session for now. So we'll go to, recall that you can speak after the business section of the agenda today. Once again, so let's go to my report. And my report is quite simple. It's Happy New Year.
You turn your mic on when you speak, please.
Anyway, my report at this stage is Happy New Year. So, continuing, we'll have a APHIS report, please.
Good. We'll begin with epidemiology report with Malia Nogel.
Hi.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Malia Nogel, and I'm an epidemiologist here at the Health District. I will be giving a brief update on the current flu season. So first, we'll start with hospitalizations, and before I proceed, I will note that all numbers and figures are as of the 23rd, which was Tuesday. We currently have had 376 influenza-related hospitalizations here in Spokane County. 310 of those have been influenza A, predominantly the subtype H3N2, but we are seeing a very minimal amount of H1N1. We also have 66 influenza B hospitalizations. 34% of these hospitalizations have verifiable vaccine status. If you look at this graph, this depicts the age range of all of our hospitalized cases. As you can see, our elderly population has been the hardest hit so far, and this is consistent with previous flu seasons as well. This next couple charts, the first one on the left displays the cases of hospitalizations per month. The chart on the right is the numbers that feed into this graph. As you can see, we are having a very heavy flu season right now. We likely will see numbers consistent with our previous most serious flu season, which was the 2014-2015 flu season. Our influenza deaths, unfortunately, we have had 18 influenza-related deaths here in the county. 27% of these cases have been verifiably immunized. All of the deaths have occurred in those who are 50 years and older. Fortunately, we have not had any reports of any pediatric deaths yet this season. All of these deaths did suffer from comorbidities or conditions that contributed to the illness. The most common have been congestive heart failure, diabetes, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And as you can see, if you look at the graph on the right, we are seeing a pretty serious flu season compared to the previous 5 years.
Any questions you might have?
And Dr. Lutz will also answer questions.
Okay. Any questions the board have of Dr. Lutz? Or?
I just want to make a couple of comments, and we had the chance to meet with Dr. Condon this morning, and I'd maybe ask him to sort of chime in from a clinical standpoint what he's been seeing. But just to again give you an appreciation of the magnitude of the current epidemic, we're all familiar with the hurricane that struck Puerto Rico a couple of months ago, and of course we are unfortunately still aware that for many people and for many organizations, electrical outage continues to be a problem. How is that related to flu? Well, interestingly enough, IV fluid that we use routinely throughout the country is disproportionately produced in Puerto Rico. So there was a national shortage of IV fluids. And because this epidemic, in contrast to past epidemics of flu, which often have gone sort of as a wave across the country, it hit the entire country at the same time. So a couple of weeks ago, we were contacted locally to provide some assistance to Kootenai Medical because they were in dire need of IV fluids because of increased hospitalizations and ICU visits and hospitalizations for patients with flu. For me, this was a real interesting opportunity to experience how important the health district is at addressing emergencies. There's a coalition that represents Eastern Washington. A lot of the entities, healthcare organizations were called to action, and we were able to get support from the VA. And so there were a lot of amazing calls made in the moment. It went up the chain of command, and the VA was able to provide IV fluids to Kootenai to solve that emergency. So for me, it was a real interesting observation of how what we think is a local epidemic, well, it's not just a local epidemic, it's a national epidemic, and how events outside of our immediate control can have significant impact locally, i.e. what we're still seeing as a concern in Puerto Rico. Dr. Condon, would you be willing to just make a couple of comments about what you've seen locally?
I'm on. 2 Fridays, oh, it has to be green. Now I'm on. I'm shy by nature. Two Fridays ago, I saw 57 patients in my office. More than a quarter of them had culture-proven flu, and many more had clinical flu. Last Friday, I saw 48 patients, and it was a similar kind of ratio. I've never seen anything like it, actually, in my practice here. Notwithstanding the 2014-2015 flu season, this seems to be far more serious than what I'm seeing, at least through my office. Also, how much time do I have?
You need. This is a report, so let's see how it goes.
Some of the clinics are not using Tamiflu as they should, in my opinion. It still works to keep people out of hospitals and prevent deaths, even if you give it after the first 2 days. And I'm also advocating using it for household contacts with culture-proven flu. So that's all.
Okay. Any other comments, Doctor?
Good. Linda will now give the legislative piece.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Graham. I'm the policy analyst for the Health District. One of my roles is to work with the board each year to adopt a legislative agenda and then monitor bills and advocate for bills on behalf of the Health District during the legislative session. So I'm just giving a report on where we're at with that. Your packet, what this reflects is your legislative agenda, the 3 tiers and the items on your agenda, and then shows bills that relate to your agenda. This does not indicate support or opposition. That's a deeper dive that we could go into if you need to, but these are things that we are monitoring, and then according to the tier they're in, taking action or just monitoring. We have just over a week until the first cutoff in the legislative session, and then we have about a week and a half until the House of Origin cutoff. So things are moving very quickly. This was actually out of date about the time I hit send. So I am not going to go through each of these with an update. If you have questions on specific items, I'm happy to give you an update. But there's really just a couple things I want to highlight for you. On the second page, under Tier 1, mental health and substance abuse, I just wanted to note the first item at the top of the second page, House Bill 2489, Senate Bill 6150. This is the governor's request legislation related to opioid use. So I just wanted to note this is likely the bill of choice that the legislature is going to move with. We do expect it to be heavily amended. There's a lot to it, so there's going to be a lot of amendments to tweak it, and also probably incorporating elements that are in other opioid use related bills to put into one bill. And just wanted to note that on this one, the House bill is scheduled to be exec out of committee next week. The other thing I wanted to highlight was under Tier 2 on page 4. For Tobacco 21, we've actually ended up with 3 bills to monitor this year. 2 of the bills were introduced last year, and then a 3rd bill was introduced this year. All of them are receiving hearings and moving forward. And so we're happy to see the attention on those. They did revise the fiscal note on these from previous years, which shows a much lower fiscal impact. So that's having some benefit, I believe, in these things moving. House Bill 1054 did pass out of committee 7-4. The Senate bill, the companion bill on that 5025 is scheduled for next week. And then Senate Bill 6048 is also had a hearing this week. And what we're hearing out there is really overwhelming support for it. The main opposition has come from businesses with a particular take on the idea if people will just go out of state or go to the tribal communities in order to purchase the cigarettes. So they're definitely looking at, those issues. Somewhat related to this, last year there was legislation introduced to impose a tax on vapor products. One of those bills, House Bill 2165, is in action again this year, and it's somewhat tied to Tobacco 21 because the idea is that at least initially, I think right now it's through the end of 2020, the revenue would go to offset the revenue loss associated with Tobacco 21. After that time, 40% of the funding would come to public health, and then 60% would go to the general fund. So just wanted to note that that one's out there as well. So with that, those were just a couple things I wanted to highlight. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take those.
I just had a point of clarification for the audience. I'm the chair of this committee, and so on Tier 3, it mentions we have 3 issues that we're interested in. Immunizations is one. There's 3 bills there. We have not taken as a committee or a board positions on those bills one way or the other. It's simply an FYI to all of us that they're out there. So just the fact that it's here is it's a monitoring, not an endorsement or against it. And they're new bills. We haven't even discussed them. So I just want people to know that just because they're in this document doesn't mean we have taken a position. And the Tier 1 and the tier 2, we have tended to take a position on the issue. And again, the bills underneath it have an impact on that. But Tier 3 is a monitoring tier, not which way we're going or leaning on it.
And at this point, we really are just monitoring because there has been no action on the bills at this point. So.
Okay, any other questions? Any other reports?
All right, thank you.
And I'm not sure. All the way over to that one? Yeah. Thank you. So thank you. I have just a few items here to cover with you. Things that we are working on right now. Our reaccreditation efforts through the Public Health Accreditation Board are well underway. The process has changed from what we did in our first accreditation effort, which was having to produce individual documents to show the things that were to be demonstrated from criteria set by FAB. This time through, there is an assumption that we have the capacity that we've demonstrated in our first round of accreditation. We now have to do narrative pieces talking about how we're utilizing that capacity to move the work forward in the particular domain area that is being worked on. So there are 12 different domains. We have teams set up to work on each one of the measures in each of those domains. Patricia Rhodes is the person on staff who is coordinating all of this effort. We will do an internal review by individual domain and then ultimately do cross-domain reviews so that we get a chance to assure that what we are submitting for accreditation meets the standards that we would expect. One of the things that I offer to any of you on the board who may have an interest is we would love your participation in this work as well as in the work that we're doing with our strategic planning. This links closely to our strategic plan, and if any of you have an interest in participating and learning more about this, we certainly would welcome that. The second piece that I just alluded to is our strategic plan. We are in a sort of a transition year between the existing strategic plan that we have. Our goal 4 of our current strategic plan is one that prepares us for the next emerging issues and strategic plan that we will be undertaking. We have about 15 people internally who are working on that Goal 4 committee. Lyndia Wilson is the person who has been chairing and moving that forward. Again, this is a place that we would welcome a board member if you would wish to participate in the work we're doing on the strategic plan. One of the things that is associated with this that I think is important for you to all be aware of is that we have a group that is coordinated through public health called the CHAB, Community Health Assessment Board. And this is looking at doing a community health assessment, and we're doing that with many partners, hospitals, chamber, universities, to try and get an understanding of what are the issues that are significant to the citizens in this community. And there are different task forces that are meeting. If you look at Priority Spokane, if you Google Priority Spokane, you can see those task forces. And when they meet, any citizen is invited to participate in any of those. The one that addresses healthy people has had 2 meetings, and we had an earlier one just this week with about 45 representatives from the community looking at data indicators that either come from the health district or from work that Dr. Patrick Jones does at Eastern Washington University with his Community Indicators Initiative. So this is something that is seeking broad community input in this assessment process. So we welcome you to seek opportunities to participate in any of those. Finally, I wanted to look at the work that we continue to do addressing health equity. We have used an assessment that comes out of the Bay Area. It's called the Barhigh Assessment, Bay Area Regional Health and Equities Initiative. And we are working to strengthen understanding about health equity in our community, and then our community, within our internal community, and then we will work with partners to advance that going forward. So those are the 3 major areas that are going on. The final thing that we wanted to take an opportunity today is to recognize that this is Chuck Hafner's 86th birthday today. And we have something here for him. Chuck, we wanted to assure that you had a ball today. Thank you, everybody. I'm sure Janet will appreciate this, but she wants to have a little ball. Then I can get home. So thank you very much. I'm quite embarrassed. And I'm lost for words, if you can believe that. But I'll get him back in just a minute because we have to finish the agenda. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's the end of our report. Thanks, Chuck. Okay, so at this time we will continue, I think, just a second. With the action items, no, we have the consent agenda, please. We have to approve the vouchers in the minutes for December 7th, 2017. Do I hear a motion to do so?
Move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Is there any discussion?
I second it.
Now is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those nays? That passes at number 6. On action 7, adopt the 2018 meeting schedule. You have that in your packet. Are there any conflicts with the dates that were provided to you? Not hearing any, I'd like to hear a motion to accept the 2018 meeting schedule, please.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All those against? It has passed. The next item, 7B, is to adopt the Health District Board committees. And let me speak to those a little bit. If I can find my sheet here. Oops, thank you. In the last
in the last 2 or 3, 4 years, one of the particular things is trying to get more of the board members involved in what's happening within the district. And of course, we have the Budget and Finance Committee, which is extremely important. So for any of the board members that wish to sign up for that particular committee, please let Ann know. I've already had a volunteer that has said that she would be the chair. It was a toot-toot job, I think a railroad job, but due to the fact that Mary has been a state auditor and she's a CPA, she just fits in beautifully to be chair of that finance committee. So Mary, I want to thank you very much for that. On the education, if you'll notice, I think that Karen, you were on that last year?
That was on the budget and finance.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So you'd like to be in that again?
Well, I was going to go to education and communications.
Oh, okay. Do you want to be chair of that?
Sure.
Okay, then. Okay. So anybody that'd like to help Karen out in regards to the Education Committee, I know that Linda Thompson would like to be in that committee. So when she's here, and maybe you can contact her previously, but she wants to be on that committee. Yeah. Of course, the Executive Committee is made up of, as you can see, of the chair and the past chair, the administrator, the health officer, 2 chairs of the committee. Usually one of them will be the finance committee chair on that particular committee. So already you're getting all these things that you need to do, Mary. It's a great committee to be on because that's where we spend the time, proper time, to determine what's happening within the functions of the health board. And then we, of course, have the policy committee, which I think you just, Linda, the staff member, really does a great job for us in providing all the background information in order for us to have a say in what policies are really extremely important for our health district. So any of your board members that wish to provide and have input can certainly be involved in that. Breen, of course, is the vice chair for next year, and then he takes my place and when I'm not here. And I'm sure there will be throughout the year many items where he's going to be involved within the organization and what we can do. So please sign up and let Ann know if you'd like to be involved in any of these committees. Okay, we're now at 7C, the resolution number 18-01, amending a policy on public comments, concerns and conduct during board meetings. Do I have a motion to accept that, please?
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay, it's open for discussion. We have discussion now, please.
I had just a question for our legal counsel. Are we supposed to, can we do that at the same meeting as proposed, or do we have to wait a?
For a resolution, you can do it at the same meeting. Bylaws take a 2-touch.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay.
And this is on the public comment issue?
That's correct.
So I just wanted to speak to some of the concerns that people had, because I think we all share them, but the main point that I wanted to make is that we're not trying to limit anyone's point of view, comments from a point of view, pro or con on any issue. We do want robust input. How we get that input, we can determine as a board. How much of it is oral, how much of it is written, how much of it comes outside. I know I've met with several people about vaccine issues outside of meetings, emails. So there's all different ways for us to get public comment. The challenge is not letting us lose our time to do the work that we need to do. So that's what we've done on city council is for public comment, we limit it. It's essentially 10 people unless everyone only uses half their time, but 30, we limit that. And we also, one of the emails commented about why isn't it first come, first serve every time? And the idea is to spread it out more equitably so that if you haven't ever spoken to the board before and you happen to be here, you get a chance to use that limited resource, that public, on the same basis as other people. So it's not meant to limit any point of view or any particular person. All rights have to balance against other rights, and this is what other groups use. And we had a few meetings in the last year where the public comment went so long that we really didn't have time to do the business that we have to get done. So that's that. And then the final thing is that sometimes there's issues that are really hot issues that we're dealing with. I remember my very first issue a couple of years ago when I came on the board was the restrictions on tobacco vaping. And so on those kinds, we actually had a whole hearing. We created lots of room for people to speak. So we still have the opportunity for that. If there's actually an issue we're considering specifically, that we can open up more space if we need to do that. So I'm all for the First Amendment and have brought many a lawsuit on exactly those issues. I've represented, for those of you who don't know, I've listed before, I've represented several families in front of the Vaccine Injury Board, so I certainly understand those issues. And this change, it really isn't about a particular issue, it's just how we get our work done. And if you really hate it, you can blame me for suggesting it. So.
Any other comments? Josh?
You know, when I saw this, it made me think about it. You know, the vast majority of us that sit on this board are elected officials, and part of that is we make ourselves available and we listen to the public. Whether we agree with them or disagree with them, we listen. This is the only time, once a month, does this body all get together in one room to allow the public to come and share with us what is important to them and what is on their minds. You know, and this is an agency that is funded by those very citizens that show up and testify. You know, and with that, we afford them 3 minutes, 180 seconds apiece. My district, District 1 in the county, the far north reaches of my district, it's no stretch of the imagination that it could take someone 45 minutes to drive down here, find parking, pay for that parking, come in here, sign up, find out they're 11th on the list, and not get to testify. And I think, just thinking that possibility is there is just the height of arrogance. And I'm gonna stand with the citizens on this one. I'm gonna stand with the public, and I urge each of you to join me and let's vote this down.
Any other comment? Karen?
I have a question from his testimony. So if somebody is here, we've gone through the first half hour, we have speakers left, they will be allowed to speak at the end of our meeting?
That is correct this time, yes.
No, so that could be an amendment. As written, it doesn't have the second public forum that we're used to, but that could be an amendment that we would always do that. We're doing it this time because we hadn't put anyone on notice of those changes. So but that's not in the current proposal, but that could be an amendment that, yes, we always have a second forum, just like we're doing today, that people could, if they were willing to stay for the entire meeting, speak at the end. So we could choose to do that if people want to do that.
I think we need to, I think we do need to consider that if there are people that are coming in to talk, that was my impression, is that we would have that after the last 30 minutes, or there would be additional time at the end for those that didn't have an opportunity to talk, to come up and talk. So I guess I would make that friendly amendment that we consider that.
I would accept that. Well, we haven't had a motion yet on it, so I would support that if everyone else does. I suggested that originally that we'd be able to do that, so I'm supportive of that if everyone else, but I'm curious as to other people. Well, she's making a motion. I second your motion to amend it to allow second public forum at the end of the business.
So there's a motion on the floor and seconded.
I have a question.
Point of order. Point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'll come back to you, Doctor. There already is a motion on the floor to accept it as presented. What your motion is an amendment to the motion and stuff, so you can treat it as an amendment, but I believe I made the motion and Mayor Freeman seconded it. So, yeah, so there is already a motion on the floor, so what you're talking about is an amendment to the motion.
To the motion, right. So do we have to vote on the motion first?
No, the Robert's rules call that you vote on the amendment first.
Okay.
And then if the amendment passes, then you vote on the original motion as amended.
Right, okay. Yeah, so, now, Doctor?
Okay. I haven't seen it done any other way. For today, I thought it was very orderly and appropriate. But I'm also reading in here that the total time allotted will be 30 minutes unless otherwise approved by the chair or a majority of the members present in the meeting. So it seems to me we have an option to extend that time in this written thing. The other thing is, I have a question. Well, can you anticipate before the meeting that there's a lot of people that want to be here so that we could plan for that ahead of time?
Well, I think when we sign up, for instance, if there's 40 people that sign up, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, that at that point in time, the chair can make that decision, whomever the chair may be, to either extend it, to make sure that everybody will have a voice in it, or to do business first and then extend it towards at the end of our business portion of it. So at least the chair would have the opportunity to make sure that the expression, but we're concerned about that if the people need their expression, it shouldn't be redundant or a duplication of what everybody is saying. I think if it's 5 or 6 people that speak and let us know exactly what they're speaking of, and then the other 10 or 15 speak the same thing, that's being redundant. And it seems like that is not necessarily, if we're taking that information and trying to see what kind of action we can do towards that. That's all I'm saying.
I just wanted to respond to, so people sign up on the day of, and so we have no way to predict.
Oh, is that what you were asking?
Yeah, we have no way to predict ahead of.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
We have no way to predict ahead of time.
Because if we did, then we could.
Yeah.
We could anticipate that, and all those voices could be heard, all those points of view could be heard.
But we can't, and also people, sometimes there's agenda topics that people want to talk about publicly, but as many times as often, there are things that really aren't on the agenda, and it's their opportunity to bring things to our attention, as was done. Some great statistics from Jacqueline, I think, from University of we don't have a way to do it. So it's mostly a day of, so there's no way to know whether there's going to be 5 people or 20 people.
Yeah, I misunderstood the question. We don't know ahead of time. Yeah.
Chair, I guess, could I ask for a clarification on the amendment that's being offered by Ms. Stratton?
I'm on, right? Yes. Okay. I'm just suggesting, I agree with Commissioner Kearns that people that come here, especially those that are, taking time off work, people that are driving, that they do have an opportunity to have their voice heard. So what I'm suggesting is that we look at that first roll call, or the first public forum, that 30 minutes, and if we have additional people still waiting to speak, that we have time allotted at the end for those individuals to be able to stand up and have their 3 minutes. I mean, we've been doing that with city council meetings. We have a forum first off, and then we have a forum at the end, and it actually has worked out pretty well for those people that are traveling. They know that if they're not right there at the top of the meeting, they can be a little late and have an opportunity to still speak at the end. Any way that we can make sure that people have an opportunity to have their voice heard, I think is important.
I believe in my earlier statement, I alluded to that if after the 30 minutes for those, if there are other people that wish to speak on the subject, they would have that opportunity. So I don't know whether we need to make an amendment to that, or whether the motion itself would clarify with the chair being able to extend it at the end of the business section of the agenda.
I think the amendment is helpful because it says there will be opportunity at the end instead of the discretion. It sort of switches the presumption. The presumption there is, now if it was going hours and hours and we don't have a quorum, the chair could end it. But it just switches the presumption. The presumption is there will be a second session subject to the chair's
So are we ready to vote for the amendment? Any further discussion relative to the amendment? I mean, yeah.
So we have an amendment and a second?
I second it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no further
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Against? Well, the second amendment has passed. Now the original motion is to accept the number 18-01, amending a policy on public comments concerns conduct during board meetings. Do I hear?
Mr. Chair?
As amended.
Can I speak to my original motion?
Mm-hmm.
So I've sat on this board and I've sat on other boards that don't provide time constraints to public testimony, and seen public testimony dominate a meeting to where the board cannot do its work. Appreciate the fact that folks come down here to want to provide input, but we are also elected to do the work of the county and or this board, and when we are precluded from being able to do that, then we've not done our job. And so I'm very comfortable that people throughout the county have access to internet, mail, telephone, and other means of communicating an opinion to members of this board. And so just because we provide a time constraint on the beginning of that public forum does not mean that people are not allowed a venue to provide input into this board. There are a variety of different ways that you can provide input that do not necessarily mean that you have to be here in this chamber. And I'm struck by the fact that when you go across the state to attend a meeting at the state legislature, you can make that journey and still not have a venue to be able to talk because they run out of time. So this is not inconsistent with what they do at the state and or other boards. So I would remind our fellow committee members that, or board members, that we're here to do the work of the public, and we've provided a variety of different venues and mechanisms to be able to hear the opinion of individuals within the community. This is not limiting their input. All it's doing is providing structure so that this board can still do its work.
Any other comments regarding the main motion? Okay. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Against?
Nay.
Okay, it passes. Okay. No executive session planned at this time. Any more reports? Board member check-in, and immediately on this, and we'll continue and go back to public hearing. So, Karen, you have anything to say?
I'm losing my voice, no.
I'm losing mine too, so. Mary?
Yep.
Maureen?
No, just that Kate Burke, who's joining the board from the City Council, is really excited to serve on this board, but she's in Olympia at the AWC today.
And I'll speak to the three next meeting when they come here. Al?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple comments if you don't mind. One, happy birthday. Appreciate the fact that it's a wheel, ball, and I think you were here when they did the wheel too, so, and invented that, so
Better be
that's
careful
great.
now.
A question for Mr. Smith. For the 2018 budget for the health district, how many cities contributed to the general operating budget for this agency?
In terms of direct allocation from the cities to us, there is none. I think what is looked at often is the backfill dollars, which are now called local government assistance dollars from the legislature direct to us, which used to be in lieu of the cities, but directly none.
Right. And hasn't been since, I believe, Initiative 695.
That is correct.
Right. And so the only local jurisdiction that provides financial assistance to this agency is the county. And I understand last month we got beat up pretty good because we reduced the amount of funding for 2018. In case folks are not aware, a lot of revenue from counties has been shifted away. And so this agency provides, or the county provides financial assistance to this agency and has ever since 695. We also represent minority of this board. So the cities that don't contribute can adopt policies and direction that cost this agency resources and don't contribute to the financial well-being of the agency. And so this county, as well as 39 other counties in the state, are experiencing financial stress. Our top priority for the Washington State Association of Counties is financial sustainability, because all of us across the state are suffering from a lack of revenue as a result of shifting, annexations, and a whole variety of other things. So I think it's appropriate that this group start having a conversation about how you're going to create financial sustainability for this agency, because the county can't afford to do it anymore. We cannot afford to do it anymore. And so cities, this is an opportunity for you to help start to financially sustain this agency. Spokane County is one of the few counties that continues to provide health service through a district. There are a number of counties that have taken their districts and incorporated them as a department of the county so that they can create that financial accountability and structure that makes it a part of county government. This board is not having that conversation. We want to keep it as a regional district with everybody at the table with a voice. But that comes with a price. And there's going to be a time when we as the county cannot continue to afford to make contributions to this agency. It's not a matter of, do we see value here? There's great value in what this agency does, but it's just a financial reality for the county that our revenues are stressed and strained. We had a $9.4 million shortfall that we made up by eliminating programs, reducing personnel, using reserves, and you just can't sustain yourself for any long period of time doing that. So I would hope that over the year, we'll have a conversation about what's the appropriate financial model for this agency as we move forward. You know, I didn't enjoy the idea that we had to reduce funding here. We had to reduce funding for a lot of agencies, both inside and outside of the county. And that's just our financial reality. It has nothing to do with the value of the service that you provide. That has everything to do with the financial picture that the county is in. So just want to put that out on the record, make sure that everybody is aware of it. When we come to the end of the year, don't be surprised that unless the financial picture for this county changes, we'll probably have this conversation again. And it's not about the service you provide. It's just, this is where, there's a bill in front of the state legislature right now, sponsored by our local legislators, that will create a $500,000 hit to our county budget. Doesn't improve the quality of county government, but it's a $500,000 hit. So that's our reality. The state continues to hit us with unfunded mandates, withholding shared revenues. I think we're paying something like $6 million for indigent defense that should be a state responsibility. The Washington Association of Counties has reached a point where we're seriously talking about suing the state to meet your financial obligations and stuff. So this is, we're in a critical mode. There are a number of counties that are one prosecution away from declaring bankruptcy. This is a problem. And so it's not the health district, county finances and structure. So just want you to be aware of that, make sure that we can put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Chuck. I could have had a better present than Al than that.
You still have the funding we gave you.
I appreciate your remarks because they're very candid and it's important and necessary to do so. So I say that's extremely important for us because we have to certainly make plans in that regard. So thank you. Dr. Condon, any questions, any comments?
No, I've enjoyed the meeting and happy to be here.
They're always very exciting, more exciting times than this. Kevin?
So I would actually, when we are blessed with all three county commissioners here, we know something's up. So I would be, in respect to Mr. French's comments, I would be interested in how we actually begin this discussion, because I do agree with Mr. French, the fact that we as cities, and will be talking to my other small cities that my position allows me to represent here regarding this health district provides significant value to the county. And I think we all, city members, appreciate the fact that we have a voice here at this table. But I think rather than it continue and become an adversarial relationship between the chief funding, local funding agency, the county, and us, that we begin this process and begin these discussions now while we're not in adversarial mode, and while we have the time to forecast and the time to work through an equitable funding mechanism that is sustainable and appropriate to everyone. So I guess that would be my question is, how do we begin that conversation? How do we begin that dialogue? And is that taken on at the finance committee level, or is that taken on between the agency, you, Torney, and the county itself, or how does that work?
My recommendation is that it certainly would come before the Budget and Finance Committee, but it is broader than just the county. Clearly, we need the county's input, but I think it does need to be broader. And we're happy to work to help facilitate that. Thank you.
And Kevin, I believe there's been some elements that of discussion already regarding it when we got our first initial cuts, financial cuts of what we're going to do. And thinking seriously down the road, we need to be prepared. So that, again, there hasn't been anything formal set up, but there has been that casual conversation that we better start looking at it.
I think more formality is necessary.
Okay, any other, Josh?
Happy birthday, Chuck, and
Thank you.
many more.
There's not too many more left, you know that. Okay, well, thank you very much. Your motion to adjourn. Oh. No, I'm adjourning. For now, we can't do it, I'm sorry. So now we're open for public comment, please. For those, we have 6 that did not have the opportunity. So I'll read their name once again. Jim Collier, Jill Collier, Derry Van Dusen.
I'm losing my voice as well. It's going around.
It must be, we're in the health district atmosphere, I guess.
At least that's good.
Okay. By the way, I'll remind anybody that needs to leave on the board, you may do so, please. If you have other meetings you have to attend.
After you've signed all the stuff that's coming around.
Okay.
Well, hi, everybody. It's kind of fun to be up here and look around. I'm Derry Van Dusen. I live in Liberty Lake. I wanted to thank the Health District for simply being an entity, because back when I couldn't afford health insurance, I knew I could run to the county. I also knew that with the Health District, I'd be in the best hands. I certainly don't have a medical degree. I don't go out and research things on my own. I trust for the education in this room. A brief story that kind of brings to light kind of the talk about vaccinations, pro, con. I always thought vaccinations were a good idea if you could avoid getting some horrific thing. For instance, back in the mid-last century, when I was born, just a conflict in my own family, I came down with what was called at the time infantile paralysis. It was thought of as no big deal. However, in times that the lingo changed over the years, and oh my gosh, it's polio of all things. So in my family, my father said, he's got infantile paralysis, no big deal. I had it, got over it, I'm feeling fine. My mother wasn't so sure that there wasn't something maybe that could be done. Well, she wasn't an educated person, but she asked questions, and we found out that vigorously, I became partially paralyzed on one part of my body, which half, who knows, because I'm here today and because my mother worked those limbs vigorously. And I ended up not needing the braces. I ended up as being able to serve my country, which I'm very proud of, in the armed services, because we were able to get information. The best that was out there at the time was the vigorously moving the limbs, and my mother opted for that rather than do nothing. So really do appreciate the science and the best minds looking out for our children. And thank you again for all of your service here in the county.
Thank you. Is it Kevy Johnson?
Yep.
Okay. K-E-D-B-Y?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, thank you.
Kevy Johnson, Spokane Valley. I was going to talk on the resolution, but that's a done deal. So I heard somebody in here say that you're able to set up a meeting for certain issues just for that. So I would love it if we could set up some sort of Q&A so that, because we sit up here and talk and talk and talk, we don't know where you guys stand, we don't know what you think, we don't know your knowledge. So if that would be possible, that would be great. So thank you very much for all you do here.
Okay, thank you. Mary Ann? Sheila? Okay. Is it Chris? I can't, oh, Clarice.
It's Sheris.
Is that it?
Sheris, yep. Close enough.
Is it? So what is it?
Sheris.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
You hear me all right? I also came to speak to the resolution, but it's already been voted on, so that's a moot point. But I'm happy to see all the people here that care about our community and have come up and, or at least made the time, even if they didn't get to come up here, and tell you what's on their heart and their minds. And I just wanted to encourage you that someday when you're not serving on this board and there's an issue that's really close to your heart, that you would safeguard the public comment protocol so that you can make a difference when you're not serving in an elected position and be heard. As speaking to this health district, I actually, as a teenager, came here for my shots before college and had an adverse reaction right here. And I'm still suffering from those health consequences. And at the time, no one checked on me, and they sent me home, even though I was faint and I was driving myself. And so I just feel like there needs to be a lot more awareness about that. And it happened right here in this building, and that's my memory of being cared for, which isn't so great. So I just wanted to put that out. And again, I'm sorry that the business that I came to comment on has already been taken place. So is there a possibility maybe to hear all the comments on something before voting on it? I would appreciate that. So thank you. Also, I'm a resident of the city. I forgot to say that. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Grant Keller?
Hello, board members. My name is Grant Keller, and I also came to testify in regards to the rule change that you had. I'm going to go ahead and read my statement because I think it's still applicable. There's a lot in here that I think you can glean from the way I see things. So I was going to urge you not to restrict in any way, limit input from the public for the following reasons. One is, of course, that some people have busier work seasons than others. I, for one, am one of those people. I have a very busy, like 9 or 10 months out of the year, and then I have a couple months where it's like, hey, I can kind of get involved. And I'm one of those citizens who tries to be involved. I don't just assume that my job is done when I fill out the ballot and mail it in. I try to come down to city council meetings. I try to be involved in different boards, neighborhood councils, that sort of thing. So I think it was unfortunate that you voted the way you did. Maybe we can bring it back up and amend that rule. I think that also the fact that it's once a month in the middle of a Thursday makes it pretty tough for a lot of people to get here. That's a challenge. It's different than the city council meetings, which are just about every Monday. So if you're limited to once every 3 months or whatever the rule's going to be, that could be a challenge for somebody. The other thing is that some information is timely and essential to speak about in the moment. Limiting or eliminating speech may very well limit your own ability to make decisions and chart your course on the board. And when the City of Spokane City Council proposed changing the rules to their open forum, it was because of one particular individual that was kind of an agitator on the board. And I think everybody understood that. He still had the right to speak his mind and have free speech. And the interesting thing is that 100% I'm not making that up. 100% of the people that came down and testified don't change the rules. 100% testified don't change the rules. You don't get 100% ever, right? And yet they went ahead and voted it in because they need to get business done, and I understand that. Most people understand you gotta get your job done. But the biggest reason to not limit input from the public in this forum, in this setting, is that our own government representatives have failed to limit input from special interests. So you mentioned that you can email, you can call, you can fax, you can do all those great things. That's nice. So can drug reps, so can anybody that has a special interest in getting your ear. But I don't see a whole lot of those people here today. I see citizens from the public, and they might be arguing from one side or the other, but those are the people you should be listening to. And I want to read an email exchange from a Pfizer employee. Her title is Alliance Development Manager. This was to an employee here at the Spokane Regional Health District. I just want you to get an idea of the coziness of the relationship we have here. Hi there, lady. Hope you're off to a great start to the week, and month for that matter. I want to make sure you saw this email thread as it relates to activity in your part of the world.
Is this a defamation
Buckle up.
email?
I think this next session will be interesting. I'm not naming any names here.
Okay.
Hope you are well. Miss our coffee chats.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
It has to do with public testimony and public comment. We have individuals that come here that want to speak, but when you have Pfizer executives, when you have drug executives that have the ear of people on the board and health officials, that's a problem, is it not? That should churn everybody's stomachs a little bit.
You're out of order, sir, and I appreciate you up your comments up until the very end, but at this stage, you're out of order. Sir.
How am I out of order? I am reading a statement. The 3 minutes. Okay. Well, if the 3 minutes are up, then I can appreciate that. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, that ends the public comment. Did she sign up?
I did, but it's fine.
I'm sorry, well, you can come and speak. If you signed up, I don't see it here. Oh, Carly, right there. Sure, come ahead. How did they get up there? I had you marked off.
It wasn't me. And lucky for you guys, I'm not tall, so I can reach the microphone.
Okay.
Well, I am here today to thank you all for all that you do. I appreciate how you serve our community. And I'm also here because it has come to my attention that you have placed removing philosophical and religious vaccine exemptions onto your 2018 agenda. And this concerns me greatly as a new member of this community. My husband and I moved our family here from California in the spring of 2017, in part due to government overreach and personal medical choices for our children. The passing of SB 277 is seen as a gross overstep on parental rights by both vaccine supporters and naysayers. Surely most of you are parents and probably have more than one child. I'm sure that you would agree with me that over the years you have found that what often works or is healthy for one child is not for the next, whether it be discipline, sleeping habits, food restrictions, health concerns, etc. Not one body is the same. In fact, one of our widest held beliefs in this nation is that we are all individuals with certain unalienable rights, one of them being bodily integrity or the inviolability of the physical body. It is a shame that the right to choose the medical risks we are willing to make for ourselves and our children is being taken away from us by the very people we voted into office, those who are supported are supposed to safeguard our personal freedoms. You heard already ad nauseum what the crazy ingredients are that we have take issue with. You can look up that on your own, so I'm not going to go over that. But it is no secret that vaccines carry risks. According to the Supreme Court, vaccines are unavoidable. Okay, I am used to public speaking, but I am just right now. I've served on boards as well, so this is in my wheelhouse. I'm freaking out. So with risk should come choice. That's all. That's my main point. And I would hope that instead of going off script, instead of creating policy, that you would instead fight for more research. I mean, there's a lot going on here, and you've heard parents testifying about terrible things that happen to their children. They're not lying. There's more, and I hope that that we can respect that, and that in terms of public policy, that those things would hold weight, and that you'd be willing to kind of push your weight around and ask for more information, and because we are on the cutting edge, and I believe that you believe your mission statement, and thank you.
And Carly, I apologize. The next time you come and sign up, talk to me first, and I'll let you speak first.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, now.
I've heard twice now that this board has a particular agenda around immunizations or lack of exemptions and things like that. And it may be before I got on, but this is my 2-year anniversary is next year. And we have, to my knowledge, the board has not adopted that position or that agenda.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
It's not on the agenda for next year?
Yeah, we're monitoring any immunization legislation, but we have not taken a position on that as a board. I can't speak for staff, things like that, but as a board, we have not done that. So I just want to make sure you understand that.
In the December meeting minutes, that wasn't on.
I don't know if you can clarify.
To clarify, the thing you have before you, the detailed bills are not your legislative agenda. I think everybody's clear on that one. The descriptions on the left are the short versions. When you read the paragraph that we put together about your position on immunizations, there is language in there about guarding against attempts to extend exemptions and wanting to retain, keep them as limited as possible in order to protect the public health.
But not
So
to
it
change,
does say that.
But not to change the current status quo?
There's not specific language that we want to go change. That it's more wanting to make sure we continue to limit exemptions.
At the status quo?
It does not say status quo. It does not say extend. It just says.
I know, but is there, yeah, but it's not to, so.
The board has not taken a position to repeal or
No.
change
Any of the exemptions we have?
any of the current exemptions.
No, there is no language about actively trying to do
That kind
anything.
of solves it right there. Okay. Okay, is that understood? Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Now, is there anything else, Linda? Okay. We're adjourned.